In the freezing darkness of the North Atlantic, more than 1,500 voices were silenced in less than 3 hours. There were no storms, no battle, no warning visible to the eye. The ship that vanished beneath the water that night was not old, not neglected, and not unfinished. She was the most advanced passenger vessel ever built, celebrated as a triumph of modern engineering, confidence, and human ambition. To understand how Titanic was lost, one must first understand how she was created. By the early 20th century, transatlantic travel had become essential to global commerce and migration. Ocean liners carried millions of passengers, vast quantities of mail, and high-value cargo between Europe and North America. Success on the Atlantic was measured not only in profit, but in prestige. Shipping companies competed fiercely to demonstrate industrial strength and national confidence. White Star Line, one of Britain's leading shipping companies, faced increasing competition from Cunard Line. Cunard's Lusitania and Mauretania had captured international attention through unprecedented speed, aided by government subsidies. White Star Line, led by Chairman J. Bruce Ismay, chose a different strategy. Rather than pursuing speed records, the company focused on building larger ships that emphasized comfort, stability, and luxury. This philosophy led to the conception of the Olympic-class liners, Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. These ships were intended to offer a superior travel experience across all passenger classes, while projecting power and refinement. The design and construction contract was awarded to Harland and Wolff of Belfast, one of the most experienced shipbuilders in the world, and a long-standing partner of White Star Line. Naval architect Thomas Andrews played a key role in the design process. His responsibility was to ensure that the ships combined luxury with structural integrity and operational reliability. Titanic was not designed as an experimental vessel. Instead, she represented the culmination of established shipbuilding practices scaled to unprecedented size. At the time of her conception, Titanic was regarded as a logical and safe advancement in maritime engineering. Titanic's size alone distinguished her from every passenger ship that came before. Measuring 882 feet, 9 inches in length, and 92 feet 6 inches in beam, she was significantly larger than any liner then in service. From the keel to the top of her funnels, the ship stood nearly 175 feet tall. Her gross register tonnage of approximately 46,328 tons made her the largest moving structure in the world at the time of her completion. The ship was organized across 9 main decks, carefully arranged to balance structural strength, passenger comfort, and operational efficiency. First-class accommodations were located amidships on the upper decks, where motion was reduced and access to public spaces was easiest. Second-class cabins were positioned slightly lower, while third-class accommodations were located toward the bow and stern on the lower decks. Below the passenger areas lay the functional core of the ship. Boiler rooms, engine rooms, coal bunkers, and cargo holds occupied the lower levels of the hull. This arrangement helped maintain stability and protected vital machinery. Crew quarters were distributed throughout the vessel to allow sailors, engineers, and service staff to work close to their assigned areas. The layout reflected Titanic's dual purpose: to operate as a powerful transatlantic transport and to function as a self-contained floating community. Every space was planned to support long ocean crossings while maintaining comfort, order, and efficiency for more than 2,000 people on board. Titanic's propulsion system combined proven engineering with modern innovation. Steam power was generated by 29 boilers, 24 double-ended and 5 single-ended, heated by 159 coal-fired furnaces. Each day, several hundred tons of coal were burned to keep the ship in motion. This labor was performed manually by stokers and trimmers working in intense heat deep within the hull. The steam powered 2 massive 4-cylinder triple-expansion reciprocating engines, each driving one of the ship's outer propellers. These engines converted steam pressure into mechanical motion through a series of pistons, a reliable technology refined over decades. Exhaust steam from these engines was then directed into a Parsons low-pressure turbine, which powered a third propeller located at the center. This hybrid system was designed to balance efficiency, smoothness, and reliability rather than extreme speed. Together, the engines produced approximately 46,000 horsepower, giving Titanic a service speed of around 21 knots. Titanic's watertight compartments were among her most notable safety features and reflected the highest standards of early 20th century maritime engineering. The hull was divided into 16 transverse bulkheads, creating 16 watertight compartments. Hydraulically operated watertight doors could be closed from the bridge, allowing sections of the ship to be isolated in the event of flooding. Designers claimed that Titanic could remain afloat if up to 4 compartments were breached, a feature that reinforced public confidence in her safety. The bulkheads, however, did not extend all the way to the upper decks. This meant that if water filled one compartment beyond a certain level, it could spill over into the next, creating a chain reaction of flooding. While known to designers, this vulnerability was considered highly unlikely and was not regarded as a fatal flaw during construction. Titanic's 4 funnels were also central to her design, combining functional and aesthetic purposes. 3 funnels vented smoke and gases from the boiler rooms, while the 4th served primarily for ventilation and visual balance. Titanic was steered using a single large rudder located at the stern. The rudder was operated by 2 steam-powered steering engines controlled from the bridge. Commands from the wheel or telemotor were transmitted to the engines, which turned the rudder. A manual system was available as a backup if mechanical steering failed. While effective for normal conditions, the rudder was relatively small compared to the size and displacement of the ship. This limited maneuverability, particularly at higher speeds, and made turning Titanic a gradual process. Titanic's designers sought to provide a level of comfort comparable to the finest hotels, and her water, heating, and ventilation systems were central to this goal. Fresh water was produced on board using large distillation plants that converted seawater into potable water. The system supplied drinking water, water for cooking, and sanitation facilities, ensuring that the needs of thousands of passengers and crew were met throughout the voyage. Heating was provided through steam radiators connected to the ship's boilers. The system kept passenger spaces, crew quarters, and public areas comfortably warm, even during the cold North Atlantic crossing. The steam heating system was essential for the comfort of first- and second-class passengers, while also providing adequate warmth for third-class accommodations. Ventilation relied on a combination of natural airflow and electrically powered fans. Air was circulated through ducts to prevent stagnation, remove heat, and maintain a steady supply of fresh air throughout cabins, lounges, dining halls, and workspaces. This allowed passengers to enjoy a safe and pleasant environment even below decks. Titanic was equipped with one of the most advanced wireless telegraph systems of the early 20th century, operated by 2 professional Marconi radio operators. The system allowed the ship to communicate over hundreds of miles with other vessels and coastal stations, a significant technological advancement for transatlantic travel. Wireless communication was still relatively new, and Titanic's system represented the cutting edge of maritime technology in 1912. The primary function of the wireless system was passenger messaging. Wealthy passengers could send personal and business messages via telegraph, which were transmitted to receiving stations and relayed worldwide. This service generated significant revenue and added a layer of convenience that few other ships could offer. In addition, the system was used to transmit navigational information, weather updates, and ice warnings from other vessels. During Titanic's voyage, multiple wireless messages were received reporting icebergs in the ship's path. These warnings were passed to the bridge, but the ship maintained its planned speed. Titanic was designed to provide an unprecedented level of comfort, luxury, and convenience to all classes of passengers, particularly those traveling first class. First-class accommodations were situated amidships on the upper decks, minimizing motion and providing easy access to the ship's public areas. Luxurious features included the grand staircase, multiple lounges, the swimming pool, a gymnasium, Turkish baths, libraries, dining salons, and private sitting rooms. The interiors were adorned with elaborate wood paneling, marble floors, stained glass, and fine furnishings, reflecting styles ranging from classical to modern and providing an atmosphere of elegance and refinement. Second-class passengers also benefited from high-quality accommodations, though less lavish than first class. Cabins were private, comfortable, and well-ventilated. The second-class dining saloon and public rooms were spacious and tastefully decorated, offering amenities that often exceeded those found on first-class sections of other contemporary ships. Third-class accommodations were simpler, but represented a significant improvement over typical immigrant quarters on earlier vessels. Cabins were arranged in groups, each with access to communal washrooms and dining areas. Efforts were made to ensure cleanliness, ventilation, and comfort, reflecting the evolving standards of passenger welfare. Families traveling in third class were provided dedicated spaces for communal activities, contributing to a safer and more orderly environment. Titanic carried a total of 20 lifeboats, including 14 standard wooden boats, 4 collapsible boats, and 2 emergency cutters. Together, they could accommodate approximately 1,178 people, less than half of the total number of passengers and crew on board. Although this was legally compliant with British Board of Trade regulations at the time, which based lifeboat requirements on a ship's tonnage rather than passenger capacity, it would later be recognized as insufficient in the event of a full-scale emergency. The lifeboats were stored on the boat deck in davits capable of lowering them quickly into the water. Some boats were collapsible and could be assembled in emergencies. Despite their readiness, crew training in launching lifeboats was limited. Drills were conducted only sporadically, and many crew members had little practical experience. Procedures for efficiently loading passengers were not standardized, which contributed to confusion during the evacuation. During the sinking, lifeboats were launched progressively, and many were only partially filled. Some passengers hesitated to leave the ship, believing it to be safer than the open lifeboats in the icy waters. Others were unaware of how to access the lifeboats quickly. The resulting evacuation was chaotic but also marked by acts of discipline and heroism among crew members and passengers who helped lower boats under extremely difficult conditions. Construction of Titanic began on March 31, 1909 at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, one of the world's most experienced shipbuilders. The ship's hull was built from thousands of steel plates, fastened with over 3 million rivets, many of them installed by hand. Each rivet was individually heated, hammered, and inspected, a process that required precision and immense labor. The sheer scale of the work made Titanic one of the most ambitious industrial projects of its era. Approximately 15,000 workers were employed during construction. These men faced challenging and often hazardous conditions. Injuries were common, and a number of fatalities occurred over the course of the ship's construction. Despite the risks, the workforce completed the ship with remarkable speed, reflecting both skill and industrial efficiency. Tasks were carefully coordinated, from laying the keel to assembling engines and installing bulkheads, ensuring that each component met strict specifications. Titanic was launched on May 31, 1911, in a major public ceremony. Titanic's sea trials were conducted on April 2, 1912, in the Irish Sea. The trials were a standard requirement for all newly completed vessels, intended to test the ship's engines, steering, speed, maneuverability, and overall seaworthiness. Titanic's trials were conducted over a single day, reflecting both the confidence of her builders and the urgency to prepare for her scheduled maiden voyage. During the trials, the ship's 2 4-cylinder triple-expansion engines and central low-pressure turbine were tested at full capacity. Engineers monitored steam pressure, fuel consumption, and mechanical performance, confirming that the propulsion system could sustain the expected service speed of approximately 21 knots. The steering system was also tested under various speeds and conditions to ensure that the rudder and steering engines responded correctly to commands from the bridge. Other operational systems were evaluated, including the watertight doors, pumps, and electrical equipment. Tests confirmed that the lifeboat davits, anchor mechanisms, and auxiliary systems functioned as designed. Crew members participated in drills to practice operating equipment and responding to emergencies, though formal evacuation drills were limited and less rigorous than later maritime safety standards would require. The sea trials concluded successfully, with Titanic meeting or exceeding all expected performance criteria. The ship returned to Belfast, where final adjustments were completed before her departure. The trials demonstrated that Titanic was not only seaworthy but also capable of fulfilling her dual purpose as a transatlantic liner for both passengers and cargo, combining speed, comfort, and reliability in a single vessel. Titanic departed from Southampton, England, on April 10, 1912 at noon, beginning her much-anticipated maiden voyage to New York. The ship carried a diverse mix of passengers, ranging from some of the wealthiest individuals in the world to families and emigrants seeking new opportunities in North America. The launch was attended by journalists, dignitaries, and shipyard workers who had helped construct the vessel, marking the event as a symbol of national pride and technological achievement. Before fully embarking on her transatlantic journey, Titanic made stops at Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, now Cobh, Ireland, to collect additional passengers and mail. These ports allowed for the boarding of second- and third-class passengers, who were largely emigrants seeking a better life overseas. Crew members managed the complex boarding process with precision, ensuring luggage, cargo, and personal effects were stowed properly. Even at this early stage, the scale of operations demonstrated Titanic's dual role as a luxury liner and a working cargo vessel. Passengers quickly settled into their assigned quarters, familiarizing themselves with the ship's amenities. First-class travelers explored grand lounges, dining rooms, and recreational areas, while second- and third-class passengers adjusted to more modest yet well-appointed accommodations. The excitement of being aboard the largest and most luxurious ship of the time created an atmosphere of optimism and anticipation. On-board life was a mixture of formal elegance and casual activity, reflecting the different social classes present, but united by the shared experience of crossing the Atlantic on a vessel that promised comfort, speed, and safety unlike any before. For the first several days, Titanic's crossing of the North Atlantic was uneventful. The ship traveled through calm seas and clear weather, providing an opportunity for passengers and crew to settle into routines. Dining, recreation, and social activities dominated life on board, with passengers enjoying the unprecedented luxury offered by the vessel. First-class passengers dined in opulent salons, attended lectures, and engaged in leisurely pastimes, while second- and third-class passengers participated in games, reading, and communal meals. Throughout the voyage, Titanic received multiple wireless warnings regarding icebergs in the ship's projected path. Operators transmitted these messages to the bridge, where officers reviewed them in the context of normal sailing procedures. At the time, the ship was operating near its maximum service speed, consistent with White Star Line's emphasis on timely delivery over outright speed. Officers relied on visual lookouts and standard navigation practices to detect and avoid hazards, unaware that ice conditions would prove more severe than anticipated. Despite the warnings, the prevailing attitude among passengers and crew was one of confidence in Titanic's safety. The ship's size, engineering, and modern safety features, including watertight compartments, multiple lifeboats, and advanced steering systems, contributed to a widespread belief that Titanic could withstand most maritime dangers. This sense of security, combined with favorable weather and smooth sailing, masked the latent risks posed by ice in the shipping lanes and contributed to the tragic consequences that would follow. At 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912, Titanic struck an iceberg on her starboard side. The collision caused a series of punctures along the hull, breaching multiple watertight compartments. While Titanic had been designed to remain afloat with up to 4 compartments flooded, the iceberg damaged 6 compartments, exceeding the ship's designed survivability threshold. Water began flooding the forward sections of the vessel, gradually compromising buoyancy. Crew members quickly attempted to assess the extent of the damage. Lifeboat drills had been minimal, and many passengers were uncertain how to respond. Officers organized the evacuation, prioritizing women and children for boarding. The ship carried 20 lifeboats, legally sufficient but insufficient for all aboard. Despite confusion, the crew worked diligently to lower the boats, and many were launched partially filled due to caution and uncertainty. By around 2 a.m., the rate of flooding increased dramatically. The ship's bow sank, causing the stern to lift and creating extreme stress on the hull. At approximately 2:20 a.m., Titanic broke apart and submerged fully into the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. The disaster resulted in the loss of more than 1,500 lives, with survivors rescued primarily by RMS Carpathia. The sinking of Titanic remains one of the most infamous maritime disasters in history. The aftermath of Titanic's sinking prompted immediate international shock and grief. Families awaited news of loved ones while authorities coordinated rescue and recovery efforts. Approximately 700 survivors were rescued by RMS Carpathia, which had received the distress calls transmitted via Titanic's wireless system. Survivors were transported to New York, where they recounted harrowing experiences of survival, loss, and heroism. Investigations were launched in both the United States and the United Kingdom. Committees examined the causes of the disaster, scrutinizing the ship's design, lifeboat arrangements, wireless communications, navigation decisions, and operational procedures. Testimonies revealed that the ship had been traveling at near maximum speed, despite iceberg warnings. Lifeboats had been underfilled, and crew training had been insufficient for a full-scale emergency. The inquiries ultimately influenced sweeping reforms in maritime safety, including the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, SOLAS, which mandated sufficient lifeboats, continuous wireless watch, and organized emergency drills on all passenger ships. The disaster also had a profound cultural impact, shaping public perception of technological progress and human ambition. Titanic came to symbolize both the triumphs and vulnerabilities of industrial innovation, demonstrating that even the most advanced engineering could not fully protect against nature's power. Literature, art, and later film immortalized the ship and her story, preserving the memory of those who perished and those who survived. Titanic's legacy endures as a somber reminder of the interplay between human achievement, hubris, and the unforgiving forces of the sea. The lessons learned from the disaster continue to influence ship design, safety standards, and maritime culture, ensuring that the tragedy was neither forgotten nor repeated.